have conversation, make connections. That's job number one. So very pleased to see that. For those of you that haven't met, I'm Tom Hall, town manager. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I think I know most of you, or you. Well, conversation, make number one. So very pleased.
I just started YouTube, so
Okay.
we're good.
Apparently we're streaming live on YouTube, just to make you aware. We're also going to record these proceedings so we can make sure we capture all the comments. One of the things we've done in the past is prepare kind of a, not a transcript, but just try to collect the thoughts that we've shared this evening, and we'll certainly share that out to the group. So really this evening, I'm here to help kind of shepherd a bit of an agenda through, but we really want to make this as open and interactive and informal as we possibly can. Again, making connections is really what the evening's all about. Um, the idea for this all board summit really started from the vision committee, and this is a collaboration between SEDCO and the Chamber of Commerce. First one we did was back in 2014. Admittedly, we've fallen off a bit. We haven't done it consistently every year. But every time we do, we find participants really enjoy it. And so, we'll do our best to get back together. As I mentioned, it's about bringing folks together. I marvel at the expertise that we have in this community, the sort of productivity that is happening at the committee level. That wasn't always the case. And a couple of reasons for that, I think. We've made the commitment to have staff support to committees, and I think that helps in terms of the sort of work you're taking on and the productivity that comes out. And I'll credit Council Shoup here and Dawn Hamill before her on the appointments committee have really dedicated themselves to making our residents aware of opportunities and encouraging folks to get involved. And I think the fruits of that labor is in this room this evening. Tonight, I'll be sharing responsibilities with Vice Chair John Anderson, and so I'll let him say a few words.
Yep. Thanks, Tom. One of my favorite things being on the council is honestly serving on the committees with all the residents and hearing from you guys in terms of the ideas that we can do to make our community better. And so it's always been one of my biggest pleasures and privileges from serving on the council. I do just want to recognize, if you guys could stand up, the other counselors that are here. We have Councillor Fellows, Councillor Shoup, and so, yep, great. And so again, we're all here interested to hear the ideas. Yeah. Well, the weather is a problem, and then there's some other things that have created some issues tonight. So not everybody could be here, but we're the three coolest counselors. So who else would you want? But again, we're very happy for everybody to be here today. I remember 2 years ago, which I think was the last time we did this. My favorite part was when we kind of went around and heard what was important to each committee. And then I think we left there with a couple of themes that we heard that were recurring, a lot of it related to interconnectivity, trails, and things like that. So as we talk through things today, I'm going to be listening for where are those common themes that we can partner on together across different committees to help advance council goals, but other things that we may want to do that could help advance our community. So thank you for coming tonight.
Great, thank you, John. So we do have a bit of a structured agenda. There's a few pieces of information we'd like to make sure we share with you and maybe provide a little background context. That's really around the council's goals this year. And in large part, we'd love committee certainly be aware of them, ideally aligning with them and working toward them. Some of them, I think you'll see, are quite lofty and ambitious, which the goals should be. But the council's done a good job of being thoughtful about how we're actually going to execute. What are the objectives to meet these goals? And a lot of that work, I think, will hopefully bubble up and come through the committee process. I do want to acknowledge two members of staff here. Nick Bush, our new community services director, kind enough to host this evening, and Norm Kildow in the back. I have all sorts of illness running through town hall and other commitments, so I assure you, lack of attendance of staff. Don't read anything into that. They would certainly be here if they could be. So tonight we have a couple of simple objectives. Really, it's about the power of community engagement. It's bringing all of you together in the same place. We are going to do a bit of review of council goals and some of the key studies. For many of you, you've been actively involved in many of these studies, but these are big accomplishments, bold priorities, and it's going to help inform our steps for the years to come for sure. Ideally, we'll have some time at the end to do kind of an open discussion, and that's the part that John referred to, kind of sharing your thoughts about your committee work, past and future. So that's kind of the agenda for this evening, and I'm going to start with, I'd like to go around the room and have you all just introduce yourself and your affiliation with which committee or committees that you might serve on. So I'm going to start with Rachel.
I don't understand my.
Rachel Henderson, I am the vice chair of the planning board. New chair is for Brian James, who is, I'm gonna say this so you can all think, warm floor, she's down in Florida right now. I am the liaison to the long range planning committee, and I'm also very proud to say that the planning board has a forum here tonight.
I'm going to start a sign up sheet with Rachel at this table, and it'll work its way around the room. Do people think they need a microphone?
Do we need it for the people watching online?
I think it'd be best. I'm going to pass the mic, so please use it.
Leroy Crockett, part of SBAC 2, as well as the Housing Alliance and Board of Assessment Review, and I'm also the president of the Scarborough Chamber of Commerce.
My name is Peter Freilinger. I'm the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I also serve on the Long Range Planning Committee and the Transportation Committee and the Personnel Appeals Board, but we hope we'll never actually meet.
Here, here.
Good evening, my name is Alan Paul. I'm currently chair of Long Range Planning, and I also am a member of SETCO.
Hi, John Krasnick, current chair of the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation, otherwise known as SETCO. I am professionally, I am a commercial lender at Atlantic Federal Credit Union. They've seen our branch, which is I think scheduled to open in either May, maybe even May, even if not May.
Right, no something for business.
Corey Fellows, town council, formerly on the planning board, as well as long range planning. I'm now liaison to the planning board as well as long range planning. I'm also in the ordinance committee and the rules and policy committee, and apparently I'm also chair of the firing range committee.
Karen Martin, I'm the executive director of the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation.
Hey, Noah Nygren, I'm chair of the Scarborough Shellfish Conservation Commission.
Hi, I'm Rob Odland. I'm a member of the Coastal Waters and Harbor Committee. They're standing up, so I have to stand up. Mike Slavin, I'm chair of the Coastal Waters and Harbor Committee.
Yeah, perfect.
Hi, Kathleen Miller, I'm on the Conservation Commission.
Karen Shoup, town council, prior to being on the planning board, community services rec advisory board, and the zoning board.
Hi, I'm Ben Flanders. I'm an alternate on the planning board and I'm on the Conservation Commission.
Hi, I'm Cressy Maurer, and I'm an alternate on the Conservation Commission, and I'm on the Open Space Committee and the Vulnerability Assessment Working Group.
Hi, I'm Tuck Barkley. I'm a member of the Transportation Committee.
Hi, I'm James Hebert, I'm a member of the planning board.
Hi, I'm Freyla Tarpinian. I'm a member of the Board of Education. I'm also a member of the Board of Assessment.
Hi, I'm Craig Robinson, a member of the Transportation Committee.
Jen Ladd, I'm a member of the planning board and I chair the transportation committee.
I'm Nick Bush. I'm the new Community Services Director. Daryl Wright, I'm an alternate at the Community Services Advisory Board.
Alex Marshall, Community Service Advisory Board.
Norm Kildale, Finance Director.
Paul Beaver, Vice President of the Scarborough Chamber of Commerce.
Ruth Summers, member of the Scarborough Community Chamber of Commerce.
Amanda Hubner, I'm a VP of Scarborough by Local and also a board member with Scarborough Chamber of Commerce.
Jesse Fowler, President of Scarborough by Local and on the Scarborough Chamber of Commerce.
Paul, I must say, you've got a voice of radio. You're calling. I didn't say that. I was I probably will miss something and regret doing this, but I think Peter, you're the overachiever, although we've got a room full of overachievers. I think I counted 4 different committees you're currently serving. That doesn't take anything away. Also the library. Also the library, not to be outdone. But many of you I know have served for 20+ years in various committee positions. So it's just an amazing wealth of knowledge and experience in this room. So thank you very much. I'm going to do a quick overview of 3 different studies that we're kind of nearing reaching the finish line on. Those 3 studies are a townwide transportation assessment, a vulnerability assessment, and not to be outdone, an open space plan as well. So I should say, these studies all, we should credit the town council for kind of having the vision, perhaps some of that vision bubbled up in the committee process, I suspect. But the council, in many cases, made a conscious effort to fund these studies. Some of them weren't in my proposed budget. They made them priorities. And those and these studies are kind of running simultaneously in many respects. They're all kind of reaching kind of be landing about the same time this spring, early summer. This is going to significantly advise and inform kind of the investments and the priorities and the efforts of staff and probably committees for years to come. So the transportation plan, there's a number of key themes. It's really about implementing this complete streets concept, connectivity or connectivity, as I hear pronounced, is really a major theme that I think is throughout this document. It really focuses on all modes of transportation and finding ways to kind of share that limited resource, if you will. And many times those different modes can be competing or they are competing for the same real estate. So it's really challenging, but vitally important. Transportation is certainly something our community has told us time and time again. It's the #1 issue for them. Just the ability and the safety of how we move about our community. So incredibly important work. Again, this is one that I think will be very instructive in terms of where to make future investments of time and capital. Next. Working on an open space plan. The council 2.5 years ago or so, 2 years ago, set an ambitious goal of 30 by 30. This is a goal of conserving 30% of our land mass by 2030. And one of the things we realized is how do we define conserved land? And this plan goes much further than that, but that's one of the things that has been helpful. This plan is helping us understand what does that mean and how can we actually rate ourselves in terms of toward that goal. There's been an ad hoc committee. Many folks in this room, I think, have been part of this effort. We have a terrific consultant, Viewshed, that's supported the committee work. And very interested to see the results. I believe the council will be hearing the preliminary results in a workshop on March 5th. So if you're interested to know more in a couple of weeks, you're going to find out certainly a lot more. The other piece is worth mentioning. Our community embraced a $6 million land fund last fall. And the Parks and Conservation Land Board is our town committee that is tasked with evaluating requests for use of those land bonds. They're using a pretty complicated tool that served us well, but I think is a bit outdated. And this plan is going to help us provide some updates to that review process. So very anxious to have that new piece of new abilities as we expect we'll have a lot of requests in the future years. And finally, sea level rise vulnerability assessment. This is certainly overdue. For those of us that obviously we all live in town, we can appreciate, we know the hot spots that flood half dozen or a dozen times a year. It used to be a rarity. It's now a regular thing. And that's certainly not going to change. In fact, we expect it will get far worse. So this is really about documenting and assessing and understanding where are vulnerable parts of infrastructure in town. We've made a concerted effort to engage the beach communities for obvious reasons, and have done some direct outreach by holding meetings in those communities to help engage them, understand from their perspective where those priorities should be. And this is another one that will really help us understand where we should be making investments, or in some cases disinvestments. One of the strategies for Sawyer Street along the Cape Elizabeth border is rather than investing $6 million or so to raise the road, it's allowing the road to go back to the marsh, and this happens to be the Rachel Carson area. So it's not always about spending money, it's about understanding where the vulnerable areas are and finding the best strategy to meet the situation. So, Peter.
Tom, you mentioned that the transportation plan would be finalized in the spring. When will the open space and the sea level vulnerability assessment be finalized?
All the spring. I don't know exact dates. Yep, open space I think is a bit closer, but this vulnerability assessment is right on its heels.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm hopeful that it's going to be informative on the FY26 budget. Which certainly I think they're far enough along to appreciate that they can start performing things right away. I think I reviewed most of this. I should mention GEI is our consultant. Again, there's an ad hoc group. And we've done some direct outreach to some known sensitive areas.
Tom, just remind everybody that we send out that slideshow that has links to all the studies, so everybody will be able to find everything very easily.
And most of you are all tuned in on town affairs. Through the course of the spring, I think you'll see workshops and other more detailed conversations around all of these topics. Our website does have the information. Karen just mentioned that we could do a better job of maybe lifting those up, making it a little easier to find, and that's good feedback. We'll get right on that. John?
Real quick, the 30 by 30 plan, can you ballpark estimate the percentage as of now?
Someone's going to correct me. I think we're somewhere in the area of 17-18%. So we're better than halfway there. Right. So the final 13 to 14% will be the most challenging, arguably. But the ambitious goal, I think it's propelled us to really think about this harder. The residents have embraced the concept of conservation. So I think we've got all the ingredients. So if you bear with us, John's going to take you all through an overview of the council goals.
Thanks. And I think everybody has sheets on their table, so if you want to look at that as well as I talk through that. So the first goal we have is really focused on the school. So how many have been reading up and seeing in the paper everything that's going on with the school? Can I see raising hands? Well, if you haven't, you need to read more. They're actually in process of getting ready to launch their survey to gather community feedback. And so I really would appreciate everybody here not only taking the survey, but asking 5 friends to take the survey. Leroy's here tonight and he has some material. There's a QR code. Everybody should be getting something in the mail in the next couple of weeks with the information to be able to take the survey. But community engagement is super important. As you'll see, it's one of our goals, and this is something especially important for our community. So we've decided to really prioritize that this year. Yeah, I think 10,000 mailers are going out, which is pretty much every
10,000 postcards are going out, and we're encouraging people to put these up as well, if they can, around town, and to talk to your neighbors and your friends and everybody. So everybody's going to get a postcard saying the survey's out, take it.
Yep. So again, this is our second go at addressing the K-8 school facility issues that exist today. And so fingers crossed, hopefully this November, we'll have something on the ballot to start to address the issues that we have there. So a lot of the things we're planning to do this year is just really double down our commitment to partner with the school board and the SBAC too, to make sure that we are partners in that process. And we want to make sure that the communication happens well, that we're actively participating. We have scheduled workshops with that committee this year in partnership with the school board to really make sure we're continuing to be there to guide and partner as they work through the process. Again, we want to look at the financial analysis. We always know that that's something that's important to our residents and our taxpayers when it comes to making these big capital investment decisions. So that's something we're committed to support the school and the project as they go through that to understand tax impact. And really make sure one of the things that will come up as this goes to ballot is, what about some of the other projects in town? What about community center? What about a library extension? Those are conversations that the council wants to have in parallel to supporting the school. We want to work together in partnership with, the Community Services Rec Advisory Board, the Library Board, the school, anybody who has interest in these other facilities to make sure that we can continue those on a parallel path, because those are important and we need to plan for those as well. We don't want them to stop. We've made a commitment though as a council that the school is the top priority. And so that needs our primary focus, but we want to have conversations and continue to see some advancement in those areas. So this year we have we kind of have council champions that we've assigned to kind of really be the stewards of this, to hold us all accountable, help remind us to keep our committees accountable to these types of things. And also in here, you're going to see, and what you'll see up here is some of the key committees that we think are crucial to help us advance those goals. That doesn't mean there aren't other committees that are important to consult throughout the process. And so as you guys look at these, and as you look at these again with your committees in the future, think about where you guys can contribute. It may not be listed here, but transportation committees, super important as we decide where the site is for the school. Sustainability, as the design comes together, I'm sure there'll be some sustainable building solutions that we want to consider. This will eventually make its way to the planning board. So again, there's so many opportunities for different committees to chime in early and often on a lot of these things. So just let us know where that should happen, and the council liaisons and staff will help support making that happen. The next goal is our goal around conservation, sustainability, and resiliency. A lot of this links back to what Tom alluded to with the vulnerability assessment, taking that to the final stages, and really start to think about how we bring that to life, as well as the open space plan. I just want to give a shout out to Councilor Shute, because since she's been on the council, she's really elevated conservation for the council. I don't think we had goals on this topic before. And so it's been her persistence and continued persistence that continues to keep this. So thank you, Councilor Shute, and everybody who has been working on pushing us in this area, because it's super important and something that, I think we as a community find to be very important to the future for our town. A lot of the stuff that we have this year around this, beyond those two plans, is really things we want to explore and learn more about and figure out how we can make policy decisions around those. So things like becoming a tree city, looking at the CRS program and how we can fit there, exploring low impact development standards. That's something we actually have to do as part of our MS4 permit. So that explore really means we got to do something, but what is that the right thing? We recently, which is something I think we're all proud of, passed an ordinance that created a 25-foot wetland buffer, which was kind of the start of trying to do more protection in our zoning around the environment. And so I think this is kind of the next step that we need to figure out, what does that really mean? What are the things we want to see in our zoning? Unfortunately, Rick isn't here, as Rachel mentioned, but he's had a baby for a while to try and get the council to establish a sustainability reserve account. And that's something that the finance committee is going to be hopefully moving forward at our next finance committee, to make sure that we're setting money aside to invest in good sustainable projects or pursue grants that could really help where we're going to need local matching funding. So that's that one. Next is growth, housing, and land use. And so, so council champions, Councilor Shute, and Councilor Fellows, who's also here tonight. And then again, bunch of committees, bunch of ad hoc committees, again, not intended to be the full list, but the ones that we feel like are the primary ones that we'll be partnering with as we work through these activities this year. All right, next is housing and land use. And so we are extremely lucky to have Councilor Fellows now serving on the council. We've been talking a lot about the need to focus on affordable and workforce housing. We say that, but we haven't really done much to from a policy perspective to really enable that. And so we all are very sensitive at the same time that residents have shared that they have significant concerns about growth. So balancing those two needs to have both affordable and workforce housing to help with our economy, but also to keep Scarborough affordable is super important. But we are sensitive to the feedback that we received that we need we need to do that responsibly and make sure that we're managing growth at the same time. So this is something that, again, we're looking to really just step our toes into this year. And so the first step is really to get a little bit more educated on the problem, the opportunity. So we plan to host a workshop with the Housing Alliance and other partners at some point in the near future. We talked about it yesterday about trying to maybe get something, before budget if we can, or once budget starts, it's hard to do much other than budget, so it might be after budget. But this is something that we really want to kind of get our hands into to see what we can do to actually establish a cohesive policy. We are in process though of updating our credit enhancement policy, and a lot of times affordable housing, in order to become enabled for financing, does oftentimes require municipalities to offer, tax incentives or support. So that way those projects can get the necessary funding that they need from the state and other resources. So that was something that we didn't currently have outlined in our policy that we decided was important to better define, to create a pathway of at least be clear on the requirements of what it takes to actually apply for a CA in Scarborough. So that's actually up for second read at our next meeting. So some of these things are already making great progress to move forward. Another thing that we might be tackling or will be tackling this year, which is something that came up last year but didn't really get to the finish line, was looking at short-term rentals. So a lot of communities have been implementing short-term rental ordinances, and this is something that we want to kind of bring back to the forefront and close that conversation and make sure that we in town decide what we want to do as it relates to short-term rentals. So Councillor Donovan and Councillor Fellows are going to be our champions, and a lot of committees that we're going to need support in order to get this work done. I don't know, Karen or Corey, if there's anything you want to add on conservation or housing. No, okay, I'll keep going. All right, next is communication and community engagement. So just to give you guys some background in terms of the sausage and how it was made to create these goals, like we had like 50 different things that we were trying to prioritize and do, and we had to narrow them down. And the one thing, this goal originally started as a specific communication goal around development, and then through that conversation we kind of said, no, this is important for everything. It's not about development, it's really about how do we ensure we have good public engagement and community conversations on the things that we do across all of our goals, but across everything that we do. And I think that's something that every committee member can assist us with. So every time you guys are working on, an issue, how are you sharing that with your neighbors and with other people so that they're more aware of what's happening in town? A lot of times the work starts in our committees and then works its way up to the council. So how can we bring people in a little bit more as things are starting early, as you guys are shaping your recommendations? And so that's a little bit of a challenge for all of you to, as you leave here and as you are working, think about how do you bring the public in? How do you make sure that people are aware? When we were doing the transportation committee, the transportation study with the transportation committee, I know there were surveys that went out. I think bring the public in more to things before it comes before the council for a decision. A lot of times people may not know what's going on, and that's no judgment. They're busy, they have a lot going on, but how can we pull them in a little bit earlier? So a lot of the things, some of the things we have listed here kind of carryovers from the original goal, but also some things that we want to do. So one thing that we've talked about is, and this is something that the communications committee, the council communications committee is actively working on, is we need to communicate better about what we're doing about growth. We know that's a big issue for residents. We know you see trees come down and then all of a sudden it creates a response. And so we have to do a better job communicating to the public what our growth management strategies are, what we're doing, how that's impacting things both positively and negatively, make sure that we're honest about how growth can help us as a community, but also how we need to manage it responsibly to make sure it's protecting the quality of life of all of our residents. We are very interested in further refining our framework for public engagement. So we did stuff we've done something called Council Corner Live. I don't know if anybody's ever attended. But we want to refigure out now in a post-COVID world, which has taken us some time to get there. How do we better go to the public and engage with them? So Councilor Cushing is very passionate about this and really wants to think, how do we partner with the Chamber of Commerce and SEDCO and other groups in town that have influence or have reach and go to them so that we can engage more with residents on topics that are important to them, but also things that we're working on. We're looking to reestablish a liaison role to Crossroads Holding. So we had one in the past and then we got rid of it. And given all the things that are happening now with the downtown and the direction that we're going, making sure that we have a connection with them as a partner because they are a key partner in this town, and we want to make sure that there's at least a council and staff person engaged with them on a regular basis. And so that way it's transparent of what's going on with Crossroads. Let's see. So again, a lot of what we're trying to do this year too is to help better educate and communicate the value of the choices we're making in the budget. So I can't tell you how many times I hear when I talk to people, I pay so much taxes, but I don't know what I'm getting for. And that's something I hear pretty often. And, being in the budget, being on the finance committee, I see what we're spending our money on. It's really on people. It's on teachers, on ed techs in the schools. It's on policemen, on firefighters, on our planning staff. Like 80% of our budget is people who serve this community day in and day out to make it better. So how do we communicate that better, and how do we communicate the investment choices that we're making better, so that way people understand the value and the benefit of what they're getting with their tax dollars. Okay, next is traffic and transportation. So I feel like I won the council goal battle because I serve on that committee, and I was like, this one is going to be the one that I'm going to push for and make sure that we get everything that the committee wanted, and I was pretty successful. So if you go to the next slide. So as Tom mentioned, the townwide transportation study is clearly the biggest thing that committee has been working on, and it's close to final, and that's really going to set a good pathway going forward for transportation priorities in town. And so there's a real need though to take that study, which really kind of outlines all of the different opportunities to improve traffic, cycling, walkability, a lot of things that are important. It's not just about cars getting around town, it's how do we as people better get around town in whatever different modality that we prefer. And so we're looking for that committee to really help prioritize some of the things coming out of there and give us some direction on what we need to fund. We are in process of pursuing grants, but right now, in the current environment, those are risky, but we are pursuing a grant for Payne Road improvement. So this is something that we updated our impact fees for this year or last year to really make sure that we're starting to build the reserves to be able to make a massive improvement along Payne Road to widen it. It was actually part of the transportation study that we did. We were hoping getting a grant would allow us to do that faster. It just depends if we're awarded it. So we pursued that. We also want to recommit our work with some of our regional partners, so Metro Coalition, TAX, and others, and make sure that we're also addressing the traffic issues in North Scarborough. So last year when the council made a resolution to remove our support to MDOT, we at least said we need to continue the work though to identify traffic solutions in North Scarborough. That wasn't necessarily part of the transportation study because the study assumed the Gorham Connector was coming, and so we still have an issue in that region and we still need to figure it out. So that's something we'll also be looking to tackle this year. And then again, as Tom mentioned, with traffic being one of the biggest friction points within the community that we see in the survey over and over again, we need to do a better job communicating it so that people know what's happening. Not only what we're doing in town, but what Maine DOT is doing, what developers are doing. You know, a lot of people think the town owns all the roads in Scarborough. We don't, and so we're limited in what we can do. We're relying on the state in a lot of places, especially a lot of the places that are the biggest pain points. And then a lot of the improvements that people are seeing aren't necessarily things that the town owns. It could be things that developers are required to do as part of their development project. But we want to make sure that information is out there for the community, that they're aware, and make sure that they know that there's a lot happening to address traffic concerns in town. We are going to resolve to support GPCOG's Vision Zero plan. So this was really their focus as a partner on better incorporating safety into design for traffic. And so we just want to resolve our support that safety is a priority, and we need to make sure as we go forward, we're designing projects with safety in mind and leveraging their plan as a guide. And then the last thing, or maybe there's more, is continue to pursue public transit options. So Tom is actively in conversations with Portland Metro to look at potentially extending service into Scarborough. And then we're also interested in, thinking about, are there other things we can do, like shuttling of people, especially go to the beaches and things where it's very congested. So how can we enable services that could help with transit and some of the core places that people want to get to? So even though this is only 5 goals, there's a lot of things we're trying to do. Again, the great news is a lot of these things are already happening and in process. But in order to get them done, we have to focus. And so trying to make sure we stay focused as a town, as committees, to really make sure that we have the right priorities so that we can put all of our great energy and effort into them and get great results, was really a topic of conversation for the council this year. I'm a little bummed because there's like 10 other things I wanted that I didn't get on the list, but this is a good list for us to work from, and it's a good list. I hope that many of you think is something that we need to prioritize and get done and deliver.
Great. So you might ask yourself, and John alluded to it a little bit, how the council gets to this point, and they're poised to adopt these goals next week. So there is still opportunity for input and shaping them or refining them, and I encourage you to give some thought to that. We can share thoughts tonight, or certainly provide them to staff or to councilors anytime before next Wednesday. But this year was a bit different. The task was given to all councilors to come up with your own goal ideas. I think Councilor Anderson came up with 22. You won't be surprised. But this year we asked for an opportunity for senior staff to meet with the council and to have just an open conversation around what's our priorities, what are we doing, what's our capacity, and we're so pleased to have been received well, listened to, and very pleased with the goals that came out. We feel as though these are some are a bit of stretch goals and multi-year just by their nature, but most of them are within our wheelhouse. A lot of things are kind of already in motion, and many of you are probably aware of some of that stuff as well. So very pleased where things are going. I thought I'd just kind of take the temperature. If you just by show of hands, I'm just gonna mention the 5 kind of goal topics, and just by show of hands, which ones, whether the goals resonate with you. And we could certainly have some conversation a bit further. So the first one, long range facility planning. Okay. How about conservation, sustainability, and resiliency? A little more, the needle's going up. Growth, housing, and land use. Great. Communications and community engagement. Right. And then traffic and transportation. Okay. So it looks like the council's headed in the right direction. They're talking about things that are of interest to you and resonate with you. That's good. That's the first good test. As I said, there's still opportunity for input. I'm pleased to share the mic with anyone who maybe has thoughts on the spot. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we're pleased to take that input now. I know you're kind of hearing about it for the first time. Does anyone want to share thoughts or comments on what John just reviewed? John? Say something.
Thank you. Again, John Krasnick from SEDCO. the reason I just want to talk is, Sedco has done, gone back to do some sort of strategic planning recently. We had a sort of couple hour long retreat where we kind of talked about what sort of our priorities are, and what's interesting is hearing that, you know, the goal is that people think economic development, well, you sort of think, well, it's about, you know, bringing businesses and jobs. But what you realize and what was talked about in our meeting was, in order to bring businesses and jobs here, you need to address transportation, you need to address housing, and you need to address schools. And those things, if properly addressed, are what attracts jobs, businesses to the town. So I think they're all very important. And again, I think this is what came of last year, was that all the committees are so interconnected because of that, because really they all, you know, play together. So, you know, as Sedco thinks about, you know, economic development and attracting, you know, businesses, all of these issues are important, you know, to it, and they're crucial to it. So.
Excellent point. Yeah, you know, it's not about staying in our lane. I think we've got committees, and it's interesting how over time they create, you know, there's some issue that comes up and we'll form a committee and all of a sudden it becomes a standing committee. And that's true of most of these. Other ones are required by the state. But with staff support to the committees, and of course, staff communicates, so we have a much better awareness of what you're all doing. You know, in the past, that wasn't always the case, that the committees were kind of working in silos. So, you know, we see we're in a different place. We're really excited to harness the energy in the room. Any more thoughts, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm looking at the growth housing and land use, and I would like to ask the council to consider that a lot of the problem with housing is cost now. So how can Scarborough work on decreasing the cost of housing for people? And one of the ways I think is to incentivize new technology for housing, technological innovations. 3D printing for houses has been around for 10, 15 years now. And the University of Maine has now developed the process of 3D printing that cuts out a tremendous amount of time and in terms of the house. And for a developer, time is money in terms of their borrowing costs. So if you cut 90 days off of the time to build a house, you can decrease the cost of the developer and decrease the cost of the house to the people who want to move here, who want to have their houses here. So I think take a look at, are there incentives out there, ordinances out there that would encourage new technologies in housing, and also new ways of looking at land ownership, cooperatives. That's a way to decrease the cost of land for the individual. There's a lot of things that can be explored using the bank contacts that we seem to have here. That's wonderful. And a lot of things that we can exploit using the resources of this developed through the university system.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Any other thoughts on goals? Yeah.
Back to the topic of sort of inter-committee connectivity, I'm curious to hear from our counselors and fellow chairs and committee members in general. You know, I think this opportunity to sit here is wonderful. It's really exciting to hear all the different goals that different committees have and will be working on. But I'm curious, you know, just a couple of the examples brought. Actually, you did a great job in this presentation of highlighting which multiple committees would be valuable to working on these goals. And I'm just curious how people think that is going to best play out. So we're all here in this room tonight, but beyond here, you know, does that look like attending more meetings, or is there like shared, you know, workshops between committees, other workshops with the council? website or, email sharing of information. I'm just curious how we can each, at a little more granular level, but continue working together and collaboratively on a number of these goals.
It's a terrific question. I'm not sure if anyone has the absolute answer. I would say that if you find yourself wanting to collaborate or find out more about what a committee is doing on a certain topic, certainly talk to your staff support. If they're not making it happen, make sure I'm aware of it. I will make it happen. But I think they'll be responsive to that for sure.
I feel like there's been some instances this year, particularly where we tried to have committees collaborate and it doesn't always happen well. And so I think really, I love the question, but I think we need everybody in this room to help us think about, and sometimes like you're on your committee, but just ask yourself, how does this impact other committees or other groups in town, and how do we reach out to them, engage with them, potentially have a joint workshop or something with them, or maybe go to their meeting and share what's happening. Because again, I think the best way to do this is for you guys to be connecting and talking with each other, and I think making sure the council liaisons and the staff liaisons are actively also asking that question and making sure that where there are those opportunities, because you guys already dedicate enough time. We need you guys to like triple your hours of supporting the council. But how can we find those moments and opportunities to collaborate? Maybe it is coming to a joint workshop. But if everybody could kind of put on that partnership hat and that partnership mindset as you're tackling things within your committee and think about how to bring that out to others. We on the council are trying to do a better job this year. Typically, we have our committee liaison updates at the end of the council meeting where we're all tired. It's been 3 or 4 hours, not as long as the planning board, but we're ready to go home. And so we kind of skimp those, and we've strategically decided to move them up to the top of the agenda. So that way we're at least sharing and hearing. And I think that's the opportunity for us as counselors to be like, Counselor Shute, have you talked to the Housing Alliance about that? Because that's something you might want. It gives us that opportunity. And so I would just encourage you guys to also maybe at the end of your meetings, just ask the question, who else should we engage on this? Again, when I said earlier, communication and public engagement, we need your guys' help. A simple thing is just at the end of your agendas,
Group working with the lead council champions. Or potentially to just be responsible in each of their committee meetings